Hello, I'm Grace with Trollord Games, and I love doing stuff with this YouTube channel because I get to make content that I want to watch. I've seen a tier list for everything online, but not gaming tropes that you see in tabletop RPGs. I've compiled a list of like 35 tropes that I've either like experienced in my own games or that I've read about online, and I know that I probably missed a bunch. If there's one that like jumps out at you that I missed, definitely let me know about it. Let's go through our categories. Greatest of all time. Dare I say, I don't want to play in a game without these tropes. I love them. They're some of my favorites. They make the game so much better. They make the story better. Easy to love. These are classics, they're inoffensive, they're hard to mess up, and if you don't love them, you're wrong. I'm kidding. I have some notes. I can appreciate these tropes only under like certain conditions or if certain things are already true. Highly variable. These are they sit on both ends of the spectrum. They can either be really great or nightmare fuel, and there's not a lot of in between, and it's all about the execution. And then belongs in jail. If there are no haters for these tropes, it's because I'm dead. My qualifications for doing this are I've been gaming for about 4 years, and I like it. Yeah, that's it. That is to say, this is totally subjective. These are all just my personal opinions. I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. This is just about what I enjoy at the table. And if you love something that I put in the bottom tier or hate something that I put in greatest of all time, it's so not personal. And also, I want to know. The link to this tier list will be in the video description. And comment and yell at me if you think I'm wrong about something, and we'll talk about it. We'll take it outside and we'll settle it like gamers. Kidding.
Hey, this is Grace coming at you from the future. We are currently live on Kickstarter with Castles and Crusades Reforged. We are completely redoing our core 3 books, so our Player's Handbook, Monsters and Treasure, and the Castle Keeper's Guide. The Player's Handbook, which is really all that you need to play, is only $25 for the duration of the Kickstarter. Pretty good deal. So if you want to go over there and support us, the link is in the description. It would mean a lot. If you're watching this 2 weeks after this video goes up, I'm sorry. Back to the video.
Okay, so first off, we have the Amnesiac. This is a player character who wakes up one day with no memories of who they are or where they came from. They may or may not collaborate with the game master to have some meta knowledge of their own backstory, but for the most part, the character is played as just like, I don't know where I'm from or who I am. I'm gonna be honest, I love an Amnesiac character. I really love it when games incorporate player backstories or character backstories into the main plot line of the story, and having a character with no memory giving the GM total agency to craft a backstory for that character gives them total freedom to write them into the main plot line. I think that there are situations where the player just doesn't want to like have a backstory or write one or really care about it all that much. And I think that that's also fine. If they go up to their GM and they're like, hey, my character doesn't know what happened to them, the GM similarly has total agency to be like, okay, cool, and not write anything. And maybe seeking out that character's backstory is not part of the journey that they go on. But man, when like the player is so earnest and excited and like seeking out clues and kind of discovering who their character was, and even better when the rest of the party is also invested in learning more about this character, and then you get to have like these big reveals at the table, those are fun. I like those a lot. Animal companions. They could be a small little fey familiar. They could be a literal saber-toothed tiger, but they are friendly and loyal to one character or maybe the whole party if the vibe is right. I love animal companions in game. I think they're so fun. Sometimes the player kind of role plays their own animal companion's behavior. Sometimes the GM does it. I think that you can get into dicey territory if the GM gets a little bit like overzealous in their portrayal of the animal companion. Like maybe the whole party is like having their own like role play moment and the GM cuts in with like, and then the animal does something funny. And like that's cool a few times and can also get tiring quickly. But also generally people's tolerance for animals doing cute things is usually pretty high, so I don't know how much of a problem it really is. Okay, next we have body swapping. This is an encounter where party members swap bodies with each other, usually through like magical or weird otherworldly means. I'm gonna be honest, stuff like this is a guilty pleasure for me in game. Situations where you're forced to evaluate a combat or roleplay encounter from your party member's perspective and think about like, okay, shit, what would they do in this situation? If you have a party that hasn't really like gotten comfortable with each other yet, this is a really good way to like throw them into the fire. And especially if you have a character who's a little bit more solitary and quiet, something like this that's so extreme has like a really good potential to create these interesting roleplay moments, because then you get to say like, I've been in your shoes, I've been in your feet, I know what it was like to be you for a second. And what do you do with that? Do you say, I really want to understand you better after that experience? Or is it like, that was awful, I'm gonna shut myself out further? I'm sure by like the stuff that I've said already, you can guess like which way I lean. Burned village, dead parents. I think we all know this one. This is a really common backstory event or motivator. Your village is destroyed, your family is dead, who did it and why? I'm gonna be honest, I think it's a classic for a reason. This backstory does a lot of narrative work for the character, to put it pretentiously. It gives your character a mystery to solve and or a crime to avenge. It cuts their relational ties to the people from their past so that there's nothing really like holding them back from traveling the wide world and adventuring and putting themselves in danger and doing whatever it is that they need to do throughout the course of like the main plot line. It primes your character for exposure to violence and or killing because they've seen it before, depending on the specifics of your particular burned village or dead parents. Maybe you saw the whole thing. This backstory is the adventurer's crucible. Next we have our corruption arcs. This is when a character changes their ways and becomes more like selfish, cruel, apathetic, malicious, and generally acts against the best interests of the public. I go back and forth on this one, and really I think I would almost split it into two categories: corruption of NPCs and corruption of players, because I think that those things feel very different in game. And I say all of this as someone who really prefers to play in parties that are like oriented towards good. I think that corruption of NPCs is awesome. The closer that NPC is to the party, the more trusted they are, the better. Break my heart, make me cry, traumatize me. I love it. I want to watch someone that our party has grown to know and care for and love and trust just slip through our fingers and fall to darkness. I love that kind of thing. When it comes to corruption of player characters, I need it to be like redeemed, reversed, or resolved. Our 3 R's. For that reason, I think I'll put it here. I want to see the player either like come back into the light after falling to corruption or die. I really don't like sustained inter-party conflict, and I don't like playing in like corrupted evil parties. So I think I would need this like a corruption arc for a player to be exactly that, to be like an arc with a conclusion. Crossing the river. One thing stands between the party and the continuation of their goals, and it's a river with no obvious means across. This is a super common encounter for like low-level parties, and it makes a lot of sense. It tests everyone's like problem solving, gives them a chance to display like what kind of abilities they're bringing to the table. I will say environmental obstacles kind of cause my eyes to glaze over just like a little bit. Anything that's like, we have to cross the chasm, or like there's a rock slide blocking our path. It's just it's just a little bit boring to me, and I don't know why. But also, I think that sometimes, to be honest, like, having fun is a choice. It's easy to, like, make yourself care about a monotonous challenge, maybe, or a challenge that you might find monotonous, when you're just playing a game with your friends. Driven by revenge. Your character is driven by revenge. They want to exact vengeance on a person or entity who harmed them or persons that they care about. It's usually their main motivator for adventuring or for doing whatever they're doing. I think that revenge is a great motivator. I have, in certain instances, seen characters kind of make it their entire personality, which gets a little bit stale if there's nothing that the character cares about besides their own pursuit of revenge. That said, I think tabletop RPGs, like a lot of fiction, frequently like asks the question, is carrying out revenge morally sound? And I love that question. I don't have an answer. Who does? But I love when that question is confronted in game, especially when it puts one character at odds with another character in their party. Again, just like with corruption arcs, I want that conflict to have a resolution that we see in game. But say, like, character A has the burned village dead parents backstory, and the person that they're looking for, who was behind all of that, is character B's parent. There's so much there. Additionally, the only thing that I love more than a player character who's driven by revenge is a big bad who is driven by revenge. It adds such a layer of, like, sorrow to a villain. The next one is a classic. Who has not known an edgelord in game? This is the lone wolf. They smirk in the face of death. They need no one. They rarely speak unless spoken to. And when they speak, it's to mock, threaten, or deliver a sick one-liner. I really want to make a case for the edgelord, and I think that this character can be a lot of fun to play in like a one-shot session. But honestly, I find these characters absolutely insufferable. They often like sneak away from the party to investigate leads on their own. They don't want to like talk or share information or loot with members of their party. And oftentimes their tone, while trying to be like sly and quippy, often just comes off as very hostile, but in like a flaccid, unengaging way. You're playing a collaborative game. Be a member of the party. Please. I think that my one exception to this is if there's a character who starts off as like pretty icy and solitary at first, but who at like a reasonable pace gradually warms up to the party and forges a real respect and friendship with them. But I think that that's the exception and not the rule. And I also don't know if I would really classify that character as edgelordy. Escape from prison. The party has been arrested. They could hang around and pay penance for their crimes, or they could leave. One of my favorite campaigns ever began in a prison, so it holds a special place in my heart. This concept really like stresses me out, but in a good way. You're in a stronghold surrounded by like presumably enemies, and you have to lie, hide, sneak, maybe fight your way out. Or risk losing your character. I know that we're playing as like adventurers with cool abilities and sometimes like magic powers. That's scary. That's a scary situation. Bonus points if the prison is like an underground complex with lots of winding tunnels and dead ends and maybe some traps. Fate and or destiny. The party was destined to walk the path that they're on. They might experience like prophetic dreams, meetings with like deities or mysterious benefactors, or be given signs along their journey that they're walking a path that has been pre-carved for them by the stars. I think that there is kind of a line between being assigned a task by a god or a godlike being and being told to fulfill a certain task because it's your destiny. I think I'd be more interested in playing in a game where the party is resistant to fulfill the task that's been destined for them by this like god or being, either because like it doesn't align with their morals, or it will cause harm to befall the world or the people that they care about, or like it'll require some kind of major sacrifice from them that they're not really willing to give. And then they're dealing with the fallout of an angry god. That'd be a fun campaign. But just like the basic, you're destined to save the world, go do it. It's cool for fiction and it works for a novel, but I think it's a little bit restrictive and kind of weird in like a tabletop RPG context. Found family. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. In each other, the party finds belonging and love and community. This one goes directly to the top for me. I really like it when characters have like conflict and tension, but I don't really want to play in a game with a party that isn't building towards this dynamic. If you don't like found family dynamics in your game, I don't understand you. I'm a little afraid of you. I'm sorry. A group of ragtag adventurers pushed together by circumstance, forged in the fires of danger and difficulty, defending each other from constant threats and near-death experiences, forming a bond in pursuit of a shared goal, coming to a place where they trust and love each other like family. Who doesn't love that? Next up, we have our grumpy sunshine. This is another relationship dynamic between two characters. One of them is gruff, gloomy, rough around the edges, terse, blunt, and or cynical. The other is optimistic, bubbly, outgoing, eager, sunshiny. This is another guilty pleasure for me. Bonus points if they're in love. Extra bonus points if the two of them have classes that either line up with or contradict their personality. Like if you have the gruff, hot-headed barbarian and the sweet, smooth-talking bard, or like the terse, stern cleric and their happy-go-lucky rogue friend. I love these characters. The Guild Hall. This adventuring party is made up of members of an adventurer's guild. Jobs are generally given to them by their superiors, and they sometimes live in the guild hall. I don't know why, but I've never been super drawn to the idea of starting out a campaign as members of a guild, being like assigned quests and tasks by leadership. I'm so drawn to the idea of people who've held a sword twice being sucked into conflict and going on a long adventure because of it. I really love like accidental heroes. That being said, there's so much potential in this kind of backstory or campaign or premise. Like, picture you are an adventurer who has a code of rules and a hierarchy that you're expected to adhere to. So what happens when you stumble into something above your pay grade or uncover corruption within your ranks? Do you report to someone higher up? Do you try to handle it yourself and risk retribution if you fail or make the problem worse? I have never played as a character who is a member of a guild, and I'm more drawn to other story hooks over this one, but I also don't hate it, and I understand why it's popular. Next, we have our hidden backstories. This character is lying to the party about who they are. They have provided a fake backstory, and depending on the campaign that you're playing in, elements of their real backstory will come out to haunt them and their party. I love a hidden backstory. I love having secrets in a party between party members, and I love being confronted with the consequences of keeping a giant secret, the very foundation of like who you are as you presented yourself to be to this adventuring party who are maybe started out as strangers. What I will say is that I've seen it be kind of cringe. As a role player in a collaborative story, I think that it maybe takes some finesse on the part of the player to kind of understand when to come clean about certain things if they choose to. And that's not always the easiest. I know that I've missed the mark. So yeah, I think that this one can either be really narratively potent or kind of just annoying. These are truly a classic. Our Horny Bards. It is a bard character that absolutely lives for the chase. They are a master of seduction, or they think that they are, or they say that they are. I want to make a case for the horny bard. I think that this one completely just comes down to the player. If the player does not make it super weird, I think that this type of character can be fun to play alongside. I'll drop him here. I need them to care about something more than just like getting it. Something else additionally. Because I think that like having like the smooth talking or like often puts their foot in their mouth kind of like bard character can be a lot of fun, and it can create some interesting like roleplay scenarios. And I love bards as a class just as a rule. I think it just depends on them being a multifaceted character. Just a weird little guy. It's a weird little NPC that the party adopts and brings along for their adventure. I don't know that I've ever played in a campaign without a weird little guy, and I don't know if I would ever tolerate being without a weird little guy. I would gladly lay down my life for a weird little toad person named Scrungle. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses of tiny uggos who don't really want to go on an adventure, but by God, they're coming. The kidnapped family. One or more members of a character's family have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. I love a kidnapped family in tabletop RPGs in this context, in strictly a fictional context. One of my own characters had her family kidnapped, and it led us down a completely different adventure than the one that our game master planned for us, and completely derailed his campaign. Because there's like the revenge side of this. How dare you lay a finger on the people that I love and care about? You want to find the kidnappers and just like make them pay in blood. And also there's just that defiant spark of hope that your loved ones are still okay, that they're still alive, and that maybe if you play your cards right, if you're strong enough, you'll get them out of this. Oh, I love it. Knights in sour armor. They're gonna do the right thing, but they'll use bloodthirsty means to do it and will generally be an asshole about it. Predictably, I can appreciate like kind of a dickhead character under certain conditions. I'm not a fan of characters who are just consistently mean, and I do mean mean versus unfriendly. I have a wider tolerance for this if the character in question is an NPC instead of a player character, and a much wider range if the character is a woman. Call me crazy. Mommy or daddy issues. Your player character had a parent who was neglectful, abusive, evil, or who is now dead, and they now grapple with the trauma instilled in them from the issues with that parent. As someone who came from an awesome household with loving, attentive parents and therefore no skin in the game, I love mommy and daddy issues in game. I really like villainous parents in particular, and the potential there for either the redemption of the parent or the player character having to come to terms with doing what has to be done to stop them. We have another classic, murder hobos. There is only one type of person in the world, and that is target practice. They will bring a weapon out at the slightest inconvenience. This is another one that I would really love to make a case for. Same thing with the edgelord. I think that you can have fun with them in like a one-shot scenario where you're playing kind of a joke character. However, in any kind of longer, like sustained adventure, sorry. I think that the trope of playing as a meathead who kind of brings weapons out in the face of any obstacle is a little bit tired and unfun for everyone else. If your only two modes are overtly threatening or actively stabbing, it kind of puts the rest of your party in a position where they need to either back you up in combat constantly and aren't free to seek other solutions to problems, or they have to have a confrontation with you and hope that your murder hobo character is capable of self-reflection. And that might be fun for other people, but not so much for me. NPC betrayal. Some might say the ultimate betrayal. An NPC that was known and trusted, perhaps loved by the party, was the one behind all of their struggles the whole time. I'm gonna be honest, I want to cry, I want to hurt, I want the story to hurt me. I play this game because it's fun. In seriousness, to me, personally, I think that part of what makes tabletop RPGs so important is that they give us a place to confront and act out difficult feelings. And it's okay and less threatening because it's padded by the fact that all of it is fiction and you're surrounded by your friends playing a game. I've felt betrayed in real life. I think that everyone has to some level. And there's a real benefit to being hit with that feeling in game and seeing how your character and all of their friends process it. NPC romance. This is a romantic plotline between an NPC and a player character. I love an NPC romance if, and big if, everyone is cool with it. I think as long as everyone's cool with it, NPC romances are awesome and inoffensive generally. It adds a really nice layer of complexity to the story at large and that one character's relationship with their quest and everyone else in their adventuring party. Because is the fighter who is engaged to be married to the innkeeper in small village to the west going to want to go on the suicide mission to the big bad evil guy's castle in the east? They need to have a reason to want to be on the adventure more than they want to be at home safe with the person that they love. And I think that there is a lot of fun tension, good struggle in finding that reason. Now we have party betrayal. Someone in the party betrays another character or perhaps the entire rest of the party. It could be stealing from them while they sleep. It could be backstabbing them. This is another one that I go back and forth on. In my mind, this is an arc and needs to conclude if it happens. I think that I would have a harder time having fun in this story with like a character who's constantly doing little things like stealing from people's packs or lying or sabotaging the party for funsies. But if you have a moment where like you've got the big bad on the ropes and the whole party is closing in and suddenly one of their own steps forward and diverts them somehow, allowing the villain to get away. That's so painful and awesome. In my mind though, as soon as that happens, that is now the beginning of an arc which needs to have a conclusion and needs to be resolved somehow, whether it's with that character's death or their redemption or whatever else kind of solution everyone comes to. Player romance. This is a romantic plotline between two player characters. This is perhaps my biggest guilty pleasure in gaming. I love it when adventuring companions fall in love. I think it adds so much to the story and the dynamic between them and their relationship to the party at large. Because it's one thing to march into danger, it is another to march into danger alongside perhaps the love of your life and to trust them to not only watch your back, but to keep themselves safe. I'll qualify that I think that this works best when both players out of game are on the same page about their characters' feelings for each other. Personally, I know that not everyone is about this, but I come from a gaming table where check-ins are really common. Being able to just send a DM to gauge your fellow player's comfort, saying like, hey, I think my character is starting to maybe develop a crush on yours. Are you comfortable with that being something that's kind of played out in game? And if the answer is no, then it's dropped because it's a game. And that doesn't need to be part of the story if both people aren't comfortable with it. PvP. This is combat between player characters. Predictably, I like this under certain conditions. I like PvP if it has a purpose and it isn't just like the direct result of one character like antagonizing another for no real reason. I also love like good-natured PvP, like if two characters are engaging in a friendly duel or like a contest of strength just for fun. But if a line in the sand has been crossed and two player characters have to turn on each other, it's agonizing and so beautiful. And especially if these are like friends who have grown to love and trust each other only to realize at a pinnacle moment that their goals aren't as in line as they thought. I've got goosebumps right now. I love it so much. Redemption arcs. This is when a character, either it could be like a player or an NPC, changes their ways and begins acting in the interest of the greater good after not doing that for a while. I will never not love a redemption arc. It is so satisfying to see someone in character recognize the error of their ways, see how they were wrong, and change their behavior. Bonus points if it's paired with like the parental trauma trope from earlier, where like the parent is working for the big bad evil guy, and time again the party runs into this parent trying to foil their plans, and they just kind of each time chip away just a little bit at their resolve until one day they're finally facing off against the villain with the parent at their side, and the parent just has this moment locking eyes with their child and smiling sadly and maybe saying something to the effect of like, "I'm sorry it's come to this, kiddo," and they sacrifice themselves to weaken the villain, redeeming themselves in the only way that they think that they can. It's good shit. The reluctant hero. This character doesn't want to be an adventurer. They want nothing more than to just live a quiet life. However, they trudge on either for the greater good or due to threats against their own life or livelihood if they don't. And they may still have plans to just kind of settle down after the adventure is over. I love a reluctant hero. However, I do still need them to be like earnestly invested in the adventure and in what's happening. I don't want to watch someone shuffle their feet and complain at every step, especially if we're playing in like a lengthy campaign. A reluctant hero who knows what needs to be done and knows that they have the power to help, but who wants nothing more than to just like live a simple life and go home. It makes it all the more tragic if something happens to them on their journey, and all the more triumphant if they live to see the end, because then they've created a safer world to build their idyllic, peaceful, simple life in. Romancing the villain. This is a romantic plot line between a player character and the villain of the adventure campaign. I have exactly one experience with this. It was in my very first campaign ever, my first time playing, and I was very young. And I just joined like a random lobby on Roll20 and just joined a game with strangers. The villain was very clearly the game master's like self-insert character, and it didn't take long before he kind of created a romance between the villain and my character. I thought that I was just kind of supposed to yes and everything because I thought that's what the game is, and so I went with it, and that turned into the GM making a bunch of real life advances and then having an actual meltdown and threatening to when I had to miss a session due to a medical issue. So I do see a world in which this could create like an interesting layer of complexity in the adventure, but it'd be also kind of hard to not make a main character out of the one that's in a relationship with the main villain. So off to jail it is. Seeing each other's memories. The party encounters some kind of like magical force that makes them see into each other's past, potentially uncovering hidden secrets. This kind of goes hand in hand with body swapping for me, and really it could have been maybe merged into the same trope, but I absolutely love these types of encounters in general. Anything that just prompts or forces the party to be more open and vulnerable with each other, I'm generally all for. On the other hand though, I do think it is important to like gauge your players' comfort with stuff like this, because I know that I've written characters that have, you know, hidden backstory related secrets, and I've been excited to reveal those on my own terms. Just worth a check-in, but I do generally always love these. The surprisingly normal backstory. Nothing is wrong with this character. They grew up in a well-adjusted home with loving parents. They always wanted to be an adventurer, or not. Maybe they just rose to the challenge when the opportunity presented itself. But either way, they aren't really like seeking revenge or trying to cope with any particular trauma. They're just kind of along for the ride. I love a surprisingly normal backstory. I think that this type of backstory really frees up your character to care the most about the things that are in front of or ahead of them instead of the stuff that's behind them. I know that when I write a character with a lot of baggage and like loose threads in their backstory, I find myself looking for those threads in the main plot line rather than focusing on the main adventure. And that's just a personal thing. Not everyone grapples with that. I had to move myself down here because I love too many things. The tavern explodes. This is the beginning of an adventure. It turns the classic you meet in a tavern campaign start sort of on its head. The tavern is either decimated or beset by a threat, and the party, whether they know each other or not, has to band together in an instant to defend the structure or themselves. And what can I say? I just love the drama. Time travel. The party is sent backwards or forwards in time, and they have to figure out a way back to their own time or try to ensure that certain events happen or don't happen. I have never encountered this in-game, but I would love to. Just imagine this. Walk with me, if you will. The party discovers an ancient, mysterious artifact that flings them forward in time a few years ahead to where the villain that they're facing has achieved all of their goals. They now, stuck in time, have to kind of sneak around without being recognized and try to gather as much information about how the villain achieved their ends as possible while not being detected by anyone who could recognize them. And they have to find a way to get back to their own time so that they can prevent all of this from happening. I need to write this campaign. Does anyone want to play in that campaign? I haven't encountered it, so I think I'm gonna put it here. I think that this would be an easy winner. Total party kill. There are no survivors. The party is lost in the pursuit or completion of their quest. I think that a TPK midway through your campaign is really difficult and disappointing, especially if these are characters that you're really attached to. I say this as someone who doesn't have really like any throwaway characters. A TPK at the end of your adventure, where everyone sacrifices themselves to finish the mission, will make me sob, and I will love every second of it. Your veteran adventurer. This is a member of your party who has done this whole thing before. They do not have the youthful spark of wanderlust twinkling in their eyes. They are haunted by the things that they've seen, the things that they've done. I don't know if any party is really complete without the grizzled, battle-hardened one. I've seen some players kind of take this archetype a little bit too far and be like demeaning and condescending to the rest of the party, and that's no fun. For the most part, I really enjoy and appreciate having like an older, battle-hardened member of the party available to like ask for advice, ask for reassurance, have around to kick you in the ass when you're being naive or dumb. I think for the most part, it's all good things, but does require a little bit of finesse on the part of the player. You meet in a tavern. This is the beginning of an adventure, perhaps the most common, iconic one. And so we end this video adventure as so many begin. This is a classic for a reason. It's lighthearted, it's low stakes, it's a fun environment to meet new people. And later in your adventure, if it's still standing, your party can return to the tavern where they all met and reminisce on all the things that they've been through and how far they've come as a group. And that scene might not look so different from the ones in our own homes and hobby shops. Just a group of people who at one point were strangers, but who now trust each other enough to gather around a table and play pretend, perhaps on a weekly or daily basis. Just gathering and dreaming together. What could be better than that? So it's come to this. This is the final loadout. Definitely let me know how you would have arranged this list. Again, the tier maker is in the description. Let me know which tropes I missed. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out our other videos or find us online. We've got a full weekly schedule over on Twitch, and we're usually doing something awesome on Kickstarter at all times, so keep an eye out for us there. Thank you so much. Till next time.